do you think that Pat should take a more journalistic approach to his interviews with Aaron Rodgers, or is it okay that he does take the approach that he's more of an entertainer conducting these interviews in the manner that he does?
I don't look at Pat McAfee as a journalist. I do look at him more in the entertainment spectrum, but I do think, just even in the scope of entertainment, that when, as a host of a show, when Aaron begins to go off on these tangents, I think he's well within his right, if it's his show, to stop them, to say, hey, hold up, and then I'm sure Pat McAfee got the speech that we all get when you're there and you have to go through all the seminars and the best practices, and they tell you about what defamation is. Okay. So I'm sure, has gotten that just like everybody else in the building. And so when Aaron suggested that, it would have been a good time for him to just say, as a host, not necessarily a journalist, but as a host, and this is your show, to say, hey, or to just get him, or, make it real plain. Are you saying that Jimmy Kimmel is on the Jeffrey Epstein list? Okay, right. So if you're not saying that, then maybe we need to shut this down, right? Like, he has to get more control of his own show, and that's more of a hosting thing. That's not necessarily a journalistic thing when he begins to veer off on these tangents. And if they're friends, then Aaron will probably receive that pushback better from him than he might from somebody else.
Yeah, I think the only question that I do wish that Pat asked Aaron this week particularly is, what were you suggesting when you said Jimmy Kimmel probably doesn't want the Epstein list to be released? Because Rodgers and McAfee kind of both leaned on the backstory of that whole thing in terms of like why Aaron thought to call out Kimmel, but just the fact that he then claimed that he wasn't implying that Kimmel would be on the list. Fine. Then what were you implying? And that question was never asked.
Yeah. And, that's hosting, that's instinct. So these are things that I think, in some ways that Pat McAfee has to see himself as more than an entertainer. He doesn't have to see himself as a journalist, but that is about, controlling what's on and what is happening, kind of like on your show. Because when Aaron Rodgers was explaining, the backstory, and it was very convoluted, and it sounded very much like, I'm immunized. That's what it sounded like. It was giving that. And it's like, we know you like to play word games. We know you like to kind of pretend that you're not suggesting something that everybody with ears can clearly understand what you are suggesting. And he could dance around it all he wants, but he literally suggested that somehow Jimmy Kimmel is part of a huge sex trafficking scandal. And that is a no-no. And I know that some people think that it was a deserved response considering how much Jimmy Kimmel has made fun of him. But the thing is, see, that's different. And then people have to understand, like, calling somebody out for their opinion about an issue like vaccinations is a little different than suggesting they're a pedophile. Much different thing.